Alright, are we... Hello? Why is my tracking not working? Hi! Hello. Sorry, a couple minutes late. I was eating. I'm still eating, but you know. Hi! Hello, interwebs. I'm back from the dead yet again to talk nonsense, and my dog's here because she followed me for pizza. I'm not giving her any, but she's here. Hi. Um, alright. So, schedule for the day. It's not different. It's not different. In terms of miscellaneous, I'm probably gonna end up drawing, but beyond that, it's not different. We're gonna do our intro. We're gonna talk about the 11th era. Today we are talking about the Rory episodes in season 5, that being Vampires in Venice, Amy's Choice, and unfortunately, the Hungry Earth two-parter. Then we're gonna have a little break. Then we're gonna talk about classic. This time we're talking about the rest of the Dalek story. Maybe I'll recap the first 2 episodes a little bit, but I don't have my notes for those anymore because I deleted them. So you're getting a brief recap of what I remember. Then we're gonna have another break. Then we're gonna have topic time, which I'll figure something out. I didn't have anything planned. And then yeah, I'm probably gonna end up drawing. Not that I'll be able to do that on stream and like, talk. We tried that last time, didn't work out. And then we're gonna do our outro. Now here's the thing, because we're gonna be talking about so many episodes for Classic, I have a feeling that we might not even get to miscellaneous stuff. We'll be lucky if we get to topic time, hopefully. Hopefully. I would assume that I can't, unless I condense Classic down to like the barest of essentials, we're probably gonna just be in classic land for a very long time. And also, guess what we're back to doing today? Guess what we're back to? Oh, well, here's my notes. That's not what we're back to today, but it is something that's on screen. We're back to Roblox. What the hell? Sorry, jeez, my set just went bye-bye for a second there. Actually, hold on. Ooh, that's not what I meant to do. I wanted to zoom in a little bit. That's all. This thing went, actually, no thank you. I want to make sure that there we go. If you hear chewing, it's because I have pizza. I probably should have finished this before I came on screen and just accepted the fact that I was going to be more than 2 minutes late. Unfortunately, we made our choices. It's like my dog chose to come up with me, not knowing that she would now be trapped here. You're trapped here with me. I love you. Boop. Alright. Actually, I'm gonna finish my pizza before we talk about Doctor Who. How about I finish eating? I'm gonna mute my mic to do that because no one wants to hear me chew. This is an ASMR channel. No one wants to hear that shit. Sorry, I had to turn my audio back on. Jesus. Keep in mind, I'm not chewing with my mouth open or anything. My model just like reads me having the pizza in front of my face as like me chewing and opening my mouth. So it's just it looks like I'm going like crazy. Like I'm not. I'm just chewing normally. I swear. Okay. I'm done my pizza. I was very, very nice to my dog by giving her a piece. She's not supposed to have human food. But I was very nice to her since she's trapped up here with me. And I gave her some human food. I really need a better place for my phone. Because the tracking always screws up because my phone is just in a really awkward place. And there's not much I can do about it. Also, my chocolate milk's all the way over there, and I'm not gonna be able to get it. But you know, sometimes we just gotta live with what we've done. Just like my dog. I'm sorry, Papa, I can't let you out. I can't. I am kind of in the middle of something. On break. If you're still antsy by then, on the break, I'll let you out and I'll grab my chocolate milk. But right now, we need to start. We can't just keep doing this. I turned away just barely to grab my controller. God, the tracking on this is nuts, dude. And by nuts, I don't mean good. I mean annoying. I mean bad. All right. Cool. We're on Roblox. Gonna play this thing. And I'm gonna pull up my notes so I can talk about Doctor Who. Alright. So, first off, we're starting with vampires in Venice. Of Venice. I don't remember which. It's one of the two. And I like this episode. I think it gets a bad rep for, not really mattering. Um Jesus, I am bad at this level. This is the first level, and I'm so bad at it. This episode gets kind of a bad rep for not mattering or, like, being boring. It's fine, guys. People are too hard on it, I think. So we start off with, obviously, the Doctor interrupting Rory's bachelor party. Are you crying? Are we serious right now? Are we serious? You're the one who came up here. You came up here. Look at me. Look me in the eye. We're not doing this. I have to stay here. You have this big old comfy bed to lay in. And instead, you're crying. Just relax, girl. I said I will let you back. I will let you out of the room. Literally just like, yeah, exactly. Lay down. What are you doing? Sorry. I had a protester. So yeah, we start with the Doctor interrupting Rory's bachelor party. They call it a stag night. I don't care what they call it in England. It's a bachelor party. And it was awkward. Definitely awkward. I'm not a big fan of cringe comedy, so usually I would skip this scene. But I didn't this time, just for you. And yep, it was just as awkward as I remember. The Doctor came out of his cake in place of a stripper, then proceeded to say that Amy kissed him, left out the fact that it was against his will. And then they just left the party, I guess. Was the party canceled? I want to know, did anyone else know where they went? Because, like, did Rory just, like, usher the Doctor out and then they just, like, seemingly left together? And, like, the party was just kind of over after that, or what? If that's the case, I find it funny. But I wish we'd seen that scene instead of the scene just ending with the Doctor saying that stuff about, like, oh, sometimes you say something in your head and it sounds fine. How did that sound fine to you? How did it sound fine to you? Anyway. Then we move on. Amy and Rory are in the TARDIS. Amy's, kind of awkward since she just cheated on her fiance. And now the man who she cheated on him with is currently trying to set them up on a date. Hello? Settle. What is wrong with you? Look at me. What is wrong with you? Yeah. Is trying to set them up on a date. And, that's kind of an awkward situation to be in. But Amy's in it, and it's her own damn fault, so... the mistakes we've made, or whatever. The Doctor gets kind of pissy when Rory isn't impressed by the TARDIS. I don't have much to say. The Doctor throughout this episode is, like... He's clearly trying not to be mean to Rory, both probably to prove her wrong, based on what she said in Meanwhile in the TARDIS. But also, I think just because he doesn't want to be a jerk to him in front of Amy. Like, as much of a jerk as he was being, at least. Because he wants her to actually be with Rory and not assault him. Anyway, they end up going to Venice. You probably guessed that based on the title of the episode. The Doctor makes a comment about how it's good that they're here before Casanova is born because he owes Casanova a chicken. Which I just think is a weird thing to say. This game's hard. Anyway, they go up to this official, and the Doctor flashes his psychic paper, and on it says that Rory is a eunuch, which I didn't know what that was when I first watched the episode, have since learned what it was after watching Apothecary Diaries. Yeah, I get how that's demeaning. Anyway. Uh, Not much happens for like a little bit. Uh, they go up and they find this guy who was in the cold open, and his daughter is uh, a vampire. Oh, I'm not gonna. It's not actually a vampire. It's a fish from space, but you know, his daughter's a vampire. It's sad. Her name's Isabel. Uh, all right. I'm just gonna skip ahead to the part they actually want to talk about. I'm just going off of my notes, which I didn't take as thorough notes as I did last time because I was doing something else while I was writing the notes. I mean, while I was watching the episode, which means I didn't take notes for everything. So my next note was his reaction to the vampires was gold, which I think it was. That was just a great reaction from the doctor all around. Uh, Amy in her scene with Rory, that was concurrent to the doctor with the vampires. She was being super weirdly like manipulative in it. Not weirdly. I mean that part like I gave this season a lot of shit about Amy feeling like kind of out of character um early on. But I don't think this is an instance of that. Amy really just is that manipulative. Um so you know, sucks. They meet back up. They go to the guy's house. Um, Isabel's dad. They go to his house and they try and come up with a game plan to get Isabel back, and you know, figure out what's going on with the vampires and stuff. Um, and the two plans that they come up with, there are a total of 4 people in this room. One of them supposedly intelligent, at least. And the only plans they can come up with are Amy going into the vampire's den by herself, or blowing the entire place up. I don't know how that's gonna get your daughter back, for the record, my dude. Um, Hello? Hi? You're in my face. I love you. Anyway, uh, this is very chaotic, Puppo. It's a very chaotic stream that you're causing. Not entirely your fault. It's partly my fault. I should have taken better notes. Okay, now you're licking my hand while I'm using my hand. You just want attention. You just want attention. You just want me to let you out of the room. I'm not doing that. I'm doing something right now. You're very cute. Alright, this stream's gonna be like 4 hours extra if I have to deal with you the whole time. Anyway. During this planning phase, uh, the doctor and Rory both are like, Amy, you can't go into the vampire den alone. That's dangerous. And Amy is like, yeah, but it's kind of the only. What are we doing? Yeah, but it's kind of like the only option we got. And she keeps insisting on it, and at one point, the doctor, like, for a second considers it. And, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Hold on. Alright. Alright. Sure. What are you doing? Are we being serious right now? All right. That was a mess. That was a mess. Are my headphones on backwards? All right, better. Okay. Sorry about that. That was whatever, whatever. All right. What the hell was I even saying? Right. While they're in the planning phase, Amy's insisting that they go with the plan of her going into this vampire den alone. And at a certain point, the doctor like kind of considers it and then suddenly stops and go, "No, no, this is how they go." And uh oh, that was really good. I really liked that. Uh then they finally decide to go with the plan because the only other option is blowing them all up, I guess. And uh during the planning phase, uh at a certain point, Amy's like, "Oh, um the doctor is like, "Oh, hey, I'll just give you away. I'll say that I'm your brother." And then she's like, "Nope, that's too weird. Let's go with fiance." While her fiance is in the room, for the record, uh, and then uh, Rory protests this plan because he didn't like it in the first place, and the doctor, and Amy's like, "Yeah, they've seen the doctor already, so you should do it. You should send me into the vampire den alone." And then he's like, "Me?" And then she's like, "Yeah, you can be my brother." And he's like, "Okay, so it's weird when the doctor's your brother, but not when I'm your brother." And look, here's the thing, Rory, I want to be on your side, but also, you two did grow up together, unlike her and the doctor. And, like, up until a couple years ago, she thought you were gay. So, look, I'm not saying that you should say that it's not weird for your fiance to pose as your brother, because it is. But I am saying that it's for her it probably is way more believable for you to be her brother than the doctor. I don't know why I'm defending Amy in this. I'm just pointing it out. Uh anyway, they go, they give her away. Rory isn't happy about it, but they do. Um I didn't even mention this. The doctor when Amy says that does like notably try not to laugh. Like he kind of like snickers, but then like suppresses it. And I think it's really funny because a lot of people try and paint Rory, the Doctor, and Amy as a love triangle. And I've pointed out before how I don't like this. Um, but this is one of those instances where like I feel like a lot of people would say, "Oh, ha, he's making fun of Rory." Um, but I feel like this is more just has to do with the fact that the Doctor is kind of just like a chauvinist. Hopefully I'm using that word right. I looked it up to double check. I think I'm using it right. Like he really uh thinks highly of himself, especially when compared to other men. And so he makes fun of other men most of the time when they're on screen. And he's really trying not to with Rory because he doesn't want Amy to be interested in him and so therefore she should be with Rory. uh right before they break in, well, try to break in, to the school. I guess it's a school. It looks more like a church, but it's a school. Um, before they do that, they're on this boat, and the doctor says to Rory, "She'll be fine." And then Rory's like, "You can promise me that, can you?" And the way he says it, my brain immediately went to the fact that the doctor has promised Amy multiple times that he'd be back. And Rory most likely has heard all of those stories because obviously that's his fiance and also his childhood friend. So he's heard all about how the doctor just like broke multiple promises. So I don't know, for some reason that line stuck out to me this watch through. Um they're going through the halls and Rory brings up the fact that his fiance cheated on him and the doctor's like, "Now? We're doing this now?" Which it reminds me of when Nine was talking about domestics. I really like the way that the doctor uses the word domestics. I have definitely made the doctor say it in multiple fanfics because I love the way he says it. Um, Not that I think it's reasonable of him to view domestic situations like that, but you know, I just think it's funny. Um, anyway, so they continue on in these hallways, and then they do the whole thing where it's like the bit where it's like, oh, and you kissed her back. No, I kissed her mouth, and yada yada. And then the doctor's like, she was scared, and I happened to be there. If you had been there, it would have been you. It should have been you. And like, God, this is the person who people are saying, yeah, that guy wants to bang Amy. Clearly, it's a mess. It's a mess. Anyway, uh, I wrote a note where it's like, she kissed me because I was there. And I was like, no, she kissed you because she's a traumatized mess who can't take no for an answer because she was written by a man who thought assault was funny, but your explanation works too. And I still agree with that. Uh, Amy undoes the latch on the trap door like she was supposed to and then immediately gets caught. And for some reason, they don't redo the latch. How did they not notice her doing it? Whatever. Uh, So Amy's captured. The doctor and Rory come up out of the trapdoor. They discover a body that's been completely dehydrated. And Rory's like, oh, what have they done to it? And the doctor explains, and then he's like, I guess not everyone survives the process. And then Rory, thinks about the fact that Amy's in there. And he goes, what's dangerous about you? And then he explains that it's not that the doctor makes people do dangerous things. It's that he makes people want to impress them, and then they do the dangerous things on their own. And I mean, it's just, yeah, I, God, it's just so. Sorry, my brain just went blank. Yeah, he does do that. And the fact is that they point this out with 10 how he turns people into soldiers. But I think that the way that people keep phrasing it makes it seem like the doctor's so innocent. Like oh, he doesn't mean to do that. It's just an accident. But like in a lot of cases, the doctor just like does subtly manipulate people into doing things that are out of their comfort zone. And like he thinks he's doing it for the right reasons. I'm not trying to paint the doctor as like this intentionally manipulative villainous character. It's just a thing that he does. And it is a character flaw. And I really enjoy the way Rory points it out. It's honestly, Rory is probably one of my favorite companions next to Donna, certainly. And this is one of the reasons why I just think that him calling the doctor out on it this directly is very interesting. And I appreciate it. Um so Amy gets in the torture chair by the vampires, and I was like, how come Amy gets tortured so often in this show? There's this, there's the next there's the Hungry Earth two-parter where she's almost dissected. There's what happens with the silence in season 6. Amy's just constantly getting captured and tortured. And for what? um anyway, Uh, During the process, they explain to her, "Oh, you're gonna land up with a fish boyfriend," and then she's like, "Sorry, can't." Kind of engaged. Here's my question: When was that a problem for you, Ames? Didn't you literally just cheat on your fiance? What's the difference now? The fact that it's a fish? That's a fair reason, by the way. Don't kiss fishes. Um. Anyway, they break out. Uh. They break out of the stupid school with the help of Isabel, but Isabel can't go outside because, the sun. And so she gets captured again and then very quickly executed. But I want to take note of the fact that the doctor immediately tries to go back for her and gets shocked by the door because they lock down the school, and that includes electrifying the door, I guess. Um, and when this happens, Amy is like, "Oh my god, is he dead?" She doesn't say, "Oh my god," she says, "Is he dead?" And then Rory says, "No, he's still breathing," which I think it's cool how they had the nurse confirm that. Just fun little character details. Um, Here's my thing. In the execution scene, with Isabel, a lot of people have pointed out the fact that it's like, oh, she couldn't go out into the sun, but now she can. Except for one, she was clearly forced out there. Like, this isn't a thing where she had a choice in the matter, so I think that's a dumb thing to say. Um, but more importantly, you can see the actress, like, they put the attention to detail in there. Like, she flinches as the sun hits her, like she's like flinching away from the air uh initially. And I think that that's a cool detail. But a lot of people are just more focused on the fact that she's in the sun and not very clearly like on the ground roasting or something, I guess. But they did acknowledge it. It is in there if you pay attention, which I think is cool. Uh Anyway, the next time we see the doctor, he's sitting on the really, really bad throne prop, but it gave me House of the Dragon vibes. Just not like the throne prop, but just seeing Matt Smith on a throne, because the last time I saw him on one, it was in House of the Dragons. Um, and also, it fits into the whole theme of like, oh, the doctor thinks he's above everyone, and yada yada. Uh, she says, "I take it you're a Yeah. The fish lady says, "I take it you're a refugee like me," and the doctor kind of like starts shifting in his seat. And I think it's interesting that this is most likely because of Gallifrey, but it can also be interpreted as being at least partially because she said refugee as opposed to say invader. Like, I think he was expecting like some like big bad like villain to fight, and instead it's just some lady whose species is dying. And that always makes it harder. I wonder what would have happened if Isabel had like if they just planned to execute Isabel later or something. Like if Isabel had still been alive, I wonder if the doctor would have just helped them. You know, parallel universes. Sometimes you gotta wonder. Um, she says in the scene, she says, "I would bend the heavens or something to save my race. Meanwhile, you just philosophize." And I just think that it's a really sad thing to say because the Doctor would now probably bend the heavens to save his race, even though he's the one who ended it. Jesus. Uh, in terms of the climax, I don't have a lot to say. It's just kind of a lot of mess. Uh, there's the scene in the building where the Doctor says the people upstairs are very noisy. And then the guy's like, "There is no one upstairs." And then he was like, "I knew you were going to say that. Who else knew he was going to say that? I knew he was going to say that." And that's just a very self aware line. I appreciate it. Um, And the could your conscience handle another dead race? God, that entire scene was great. Uh oh, and then there's the silence foreshadowing at the end, but I don't really care. In terms of an episode, I think it gets a bad rep for being like, oh, it's boring. But honestly, I don't think it's that bad. I think people are a little too harsh on it. Like, it's not that forgettable. It's clearly just like, oh, Rory's a part of the team now. We need an episode introducing him, and I think it does that. I think it does that pretty well. I don't know. People are mean to it. I I gotta defend the underdog here. All right, on to Amy's choice. So Amy's choice. We start off in Ledworth, Upper Ledworth. And Amy's pregnant, and it's 5 years in the future. And it is a way to start an episode. Amy thinks that she's giving birth, except for she isn't, and she's like, "Oh, how would I know? I've never had a baby before." Which is funny. um then the doctor shows up and he's like, "Hello, I crushed your flowers." And then Rory's like, "Oh, Amy's going to kill you." And then they just move on. Amy comes outside and the doctor says a bunch of nonsense, pointing out the fact that, yes, she is heavier. And Amy keeps telling him, yeah, because I'm pregnant. And he just keeps either not hearing her or ignoring her. It's hard to tell with him. And then finally, by the end of the scene, he gets it. That's comedy. I don't know. Um, anyway. They all go off to explore Upper Ledworth and its absolute nothingness. They sit on a bench, and the doctor says, "So, what do you do to stave off the self-harm?" Which is just a fucked up thing to say, but, you know, whatever. Um, there's... Then they fall asleep, and they wake up on the TARDIS. That's what happens next. Uh, the doctor immediately calls it a nightmare. And, I mean, it's funny for the fact like, oh, it's actually like everyone's like, oh, it was a dream, and then the doctor says it was a nightmare. uh and like it's funny on the surface, but like underneath I think it's really sad. We're gonna get to it. This episode says a lot of things about the doctor that are really sad. So many people during this episode focus on like, oh, it's a love triangle. One, no. Two, and more importantly, this episode is so sad for the doctor. Like, it's just so sad. Um, so they're in the TARDIS. They're like, oh, that was a weird dream. And then they wake up back in Ledworth after they realize that they were all having the same dream. And then they were like, oh, we also just had the same dream here, so what the hell? Um, And that's kind of just like the first little chunk of this episode is just them being kind of discombobulated. Um, they say this is going to be a tricky one, and then the title plays, if I remember correctly. I didn't write it down. Again, I was watching these episodes while doing something, so my notes are not as thorough as they normally are. My notes on Classic are more thorough because I was actually like just sitting down, watching and taking notes, but this I was doing something while I was taking these notes. Um, Actually, before we get any further along, I just want to note that the doctor, after he wakes up the first time, mentions that he's getting on a bit, which I just think is funny. Youngest doctor. Oh, I'm getting on a bit. Don't let the cool gear fool you. They're so silly. Anyway. They go back and forth for a bit. Uh, the doctor threw out a manual because he disagreed with it. It's all a mess. And then the Dream Lord shows up, and as soon as he starts insulting the doctor so thoroughly, the doctor very clearly already knows who he is, which is just, God, imagine if your self-hatred, worst impulses, and intrusive thoughts came to life to insult you. Because that's all the Dream Lord is. It's so apparent when the Dream Lord and the Doctor are like have that scene by themselves in the butcher shop, where it's clearly all of the Doctor's just like worst thoughts about himself, just given a separate voice to taunt him instead of being in his head. Uh, I feel like a lot of people look at this and like analyze Amy, which is fair. Uh, but I feel like more people should be looking at this episode and analyzing the Doctor, because the villain is literally just all of the Doctor's worst traits. Isn't that awesome? I mean, it's not awesome for him, but it's awesome for us. Um, the Dream Lord at a certain point says he's seen Amy's dreams. And, like, obviously, he could be lying. He could just be playing into the whole Dream Lord aspect. Or maybe it's because he's the psychic pollen. Maybe the psychic pollen has seen Amy's dreams for some reason. What I would think is funnier is the fact that the Doctor has telepathy. So, I mean, my theory is just that Amy thinks really loud. The Doctor can just hear her thoughts because her thoughts are constantly screaming at the top of their lungs. That's my theory. Is that a stupid theory? Absolutely, but it is a theory. Um, anyway, they go back to Ledworth. The Doctor is still reeling from the fact that this is just his worst thoughts about himself personified, now having a voice to talk to his friends. Terrifying. Could you imagine if your intrusive thoughts and worst impulses became a person that didn't have a filter, that could now talk out loud to your friends? Like, forget them talking to you. You deal with that all the time. It's your head. But them talking to people who aren't you is just, horrifying. Horrifying. That's a nightmare. Um, they notice all the old people are gone. They go to see where they went, and they land up just seeing this like soccer field with all these kids, and the old people are going there. The Doctor, Rory, and Amy all go to the swings for a second. Uh, the Doctor says he wants to cut off Rory's ponytail. I don't know why they're dissing the ponytail so much. I mean, it doesn't look good, but I don't get why it's such a big deal that he has one. I'm gonna be honest, if they hadn't pointed it out, I probably wouldn't have even noticed. Um, excuse me. Jesus. I noticed that you could see rain in the background when the Doctor was looking at the old lady and the old lady was looking back. Or at least I'm assuming that's rain. There was some kind of weather happening in the background, but not in the foreground from what I could tell, which was weird. I didn't like it. Um, they cut back to the TARDIS, and they're all asking questions, and Amy says that it's cold. And the Doctor says, "What does it matter if we're cold? We have to know what she's up to." Like, he snaps at them to say it. And one, it's very interesting how this early on the Doctor's getting frustrated. Um, and I'm assuming it's mostly because of the stress that this is the Dream Lord. But it's also just interesting to see. Also, he's getting this frustrated, and it's so it's so great because none of it's real. And the thing is, he assumes the Ledworth has to be a dream because he doesn't want it to be real. And yet he's still so concerned. Because, of course, he would be more concerned about that world. In that world, there's other people at risk. In this world, it's only them three. Um, then the Doctor goes under the console and, like, just immediately breaks something. And my first thought was all of those panels where Matt talks about how clumsy he is and how he's just constantly breaking shit on set. And I thought it was funny at the time. Then we go back to Amy and Rory's like, oh, I want to actually have that dream life of us being settled down in Upper Ledworth and having a baby and all that shit. And then just Amy straight up, like, you know, playfully dodging the things and all this, like, gaslighting shit that she does, and I hate her. I hate her. And the problem is that I say that, and then she says, and then Rory says, we have to grow up eventually. And then she responds, says who? And I immediately went, Doctor, when I fucking catch you, I'm gonna end your entire bloodline. Because this is his fault. Oh my god, it's his fault. They could have been happy. They could have been happy without all the trauma. But no. But no. Anyway, they figure out, thanks to the makeshift generator the Doctor made, that they are floating towards a cold star. And Rory asks if that's a thing, or why it's burning cold, or something like that. And then the Doctor says, I can't know everything. Why does everyone always... And then I was like, I don't know, Doc. It's a mystery. Why would everyone assume that you know everything when you constantly project that image? It's hard to parse, really. And then Rory calls out the fact that this dream is the Doctor's, because the Doctor was calling out the other dream was Rory's earlier. And I find it great how Rory starts calling out the Doctor, and the Dream Lord immediately joins in. How he's like, oh, seems to be some disagreement in the ranks, eh, Doctor? And then he starts, like, making fun of him. The Dream Lord is so great. He's such a dick. Anyway. People say that the Dream Lord should come back, and I completely agree. I would love to see another episode of the Dream Lord. Not because I want to see, like, this specific version of the Dream Lord, but because I want another episode where we just get to see the Doctor's intrusive thoughts and, like, darkest parts of himself as a person. Or herself. Depends on which Doctor we're talking about. Anyway. They go back to Ledworth again. They figure out that all the kids have been turned to dust, and they go over to go, like, talk to the old people who they assume are behind it. And the Dream Lord's like, evil old people? Yeah, has to be a dream, right? What do you think, Amy? Anyway, I think we should all jump under a bus. Doctor, you go first. And look, here's the thing. That is funny, but also I find it just extremely interesting how this show is just so cool with the Doctor being this suicidal. literally his, like, the worst parts of himself just told him, hey, jump under a bus. And that's allowed. The Doctor's allowed to think to himself that he wants to jump under a bus. That's perfectly fine. This is a family show. Anyway, but instead of responding to that, he immediately instead stops the Dream Lord from talking to Amy because he doesn't want his baby to have to deal with the worst parts of himself. That's his little girl. Why do people ship them? Anyway, speaking of people shipping them, the Dream Lord says, like, oh, our doctor loves a redhead, the naughty doctor. And, like, yeah, that line, gross. And people are like, oh, clearly he's attracted to Amy because of this line, when literally, I'm gonna talk about the Dream Lord a bit later. But I just want to say that the line about how, oh, the doctor's into redheads, yada yada, that's not showing the Doctor is attracted to Amy. That's not what this is about. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that after I'm done talking about this. The Doctor then, literally, like, so short of amount of time later, he says there's only one person in the universe who hates me as much as you do. Jesus Christ. the Daleks don't even hate me as much as you do, which probably true. Probably so true. Jesus Christ, the Doctor has issues. He needs to go to therapy. uh Anyway, they go over to the old people, figure out they're aliens, yada yada. The Doctor, once again, in a world he hopes isn't real, still tries to talk down the monster. Still tries to figure out why they're doing this. It's great. The Dream Lord, instead of following Amy and Rory, notably follows the Doctor, and then just is constantly taunting and making fun of him and treating him like shit. And obviously, the Dream Lord can't kill him because he's the person that he's feeding off of, but it's so clear how much the Doctor would be so cool with the Dream Lord killing him. Not like the Doctor. I'm saying like if the Doctor's dark urges and like worst thoughts were a person, they would just kill him. And so the Dream Lord would just kill the Doctor if he wasn't his food source, and I find that to be great. Anyway, the Doctor finds a safe place to fall asleep. Amy and Rory fall asleep too. They're back on the TARDIS. And the Doctor's like, we need to decide which one's the dream. Meanwhile, he is also trying to vote for which one he thinks is the dream. And then they say, hey, are we actually trying to figure out what's real or are we competing? And then Amy's like, what are you competing for? And then they both look at her. And then she's like, oh my god. Anyway. Then Rory's like, can't we call for help? You know, we're floating into a cold star. And then the Doctor's like, oh yes, because the universe is actually quite small. And my response was, maybe if we were being written by Chibnall, Rory, but that's not until next episode. Does that fucking scene with the spaceship in the second episode of the Chibnall era it's so iconically stupid. Anyway, the Dream Lord shows back up and is like, hey, what if I just take Amy for myself? And the Doctor says to Amy, don't be scared. And I'm like, he's the one scared. He's so scared for her to be alone with this thing. Once again, imagine having an entity that is all of your worst urges and intrusive thoughts be put into a person. And it can talk to all of your friends. It's a nightmare. That's the nightmare of this episode. The fact that there is an entity made out of your intrusive thoughts and worst urges that can talk to your friends. That's insane. The Doctor then tells a bunch of people that, again, he hopes are fake to get in the car so he can save them. The Doctor is such an idiot. I love him so much. Rory carries Amy up Rory carries Amy up the stairs because he is the GOAT. She does not deserve him. Anyway. We cut back to the TARDIS and the Dream Lord's like, and the Doctor left you alone with scary old not to be trusted me. Anything could happen, and he shows up in a robe. Once again, another thing that people will try and twist and say, oh yeah, the Doctor's into Amy because the Dream Lord's a creep. Even though this line especially is clearly just meant to emphasize the fact that the Doctor is failing her. Right now, right this second, he is failing her. He left her alone with this thing, hasn't told her what it is, won't tell her what it is until the end of the episode. And, it's a mess. Anyway. Amy says that she's the person that the Doctor trusts, and then the Dream Lord immediately owns her by saying, okay, so then what's his name? She can't answer that one. Then the Dream Lord proceeds to say, like, oh, you ran away with this hero, and then are you honestly considering going back to this stupid bumpkin of a doctor? In terms of Rory, not the Doctor, different Doctor. It's a mess. Anyway. And Amy immediately is like, shut up. Because despite the fact that she is terrible to Rory in this season, she also does actually love him. and not want him to be made fun of. I don't get it either. It's a mess. Everything about this episode is a mess. Not like in a bad way, in a sad, sad way. Anyway, Amy gets sent back to the village with the other two, and the doctor shows back up, and then shortly after that, Rory fucking dies. And this is our first Rory death of the series. Applaud. When Rory dies, Amy tells the doctor to save him, and the doctor's like, I can't. And then she's like, then what's the point of you? And Jesus, Amy, the doctor's already having a day. Why do you gotta be so mean? He deserves it, but why do you gotta be so mean? Anyway. Then she insists that this has to be the dream, because otherwise she doesn't want it. And God, everything about this is so great. The acting's great. The fucking writing is great. Everything about it is great. I love the Dream Lord's reaction, Matt's reaction. I love how Karen plays it. This is so good. This is probably the best part of the episode. The old people all stop attacking them. The entire dream just kind of becomes passive as Amy decides that this is not her reality. And then they crash the camper. They go back to the other world, and there's this really well done, like, drawn out scene of them waking up in the frost. And then once everything kind of goes back to normal, Amy gives Rory a hug, and Rory gets so unnecessarily happy about this hug that I was like, God, man, leave her. Leave her. Why are you so happy about your fiancé hugging you? This should be a normal occurrence. Why do you even want to be with this woman anyway? Then the Dream Lord pretends to be defeated, and the doctor, the Dream Lord then what am I saying? The Dream Lord then pretends to leave, and the doctor, obviously knowing who the Dream Lord is and knowing better by now, then proceeds to blow up the TARDIS. Here's my thing, though. If the doctor, say, had just, like, assumed that he actually left, he would have to be really stupid to do this, but let's just assume that he's that stupid, and he thinks the Dream Lord really left. Then, my question is, would the Dream Lord have just proceeded to, like, keep pushing and, like, making up scenarios, but just, like, more subtle ones? Because, okay, here's the thing that I've been kind of saving. Actually, hold on, I just want to add one more line. When the doctor says the Dream Lord was me, all, like, my worst urges and, like, beliefs and all that shit, Amy says, you don't really believe all that stuff he said about you, right? And then I was like, ha, Amy. Oh, Amy. Anyway. So let's get into the Dream Lord, shall we? So a lot of people point to this episode and are like, oh, it's a love triangle. It's not. One, the doctor is not in love with Amy. That's not a thing. But two, and more importantly, the Dream Lord doesn't even want Amy to choose the doctor. The Dream Lord, more than anything, wants Amy and Rory to leave. That is what the Dream Lord wants. Why does he want that? Because he wants to feed on the doctor. And the easiest way to do that is if the doctor's alone, because that's when the doctor gives in to all of his darker urges and stuff. This is pointed out in season 7, and it's been pointed out before in literally the previous season. The doctor does not do well alone, so the Dream Lord wants the doctor to be alone. And the way to do that is to isolate him. The episode starts off with the doctor's nightmare being that Amy grew up and moved on and is perfectly content in a seemingly boring life. Meanwhile, he's still in the TARDIS alone He doesn't have a companion in the Ledworth dream. He's just by himself, visiting old friends, which is something he never does. He claims to have done it by accident, but we don't know the context of this dream. He's been alone for God knows how long. It's been 5 years for them. For all we know, it could have been 100 for the Doctor in this universe. I mean, it's a dream, not a universe, but that's not the point. It's more just that is the Doctor's nightmare. That Amelia grew up and doesn't need him anymore, doesn't want him anymore, and he's just back to being alone. That's a nightmare. And that's the entire time what the Dream Lord is trying to make happen. They want Amy to choose to leave the Doctor for whatever reason. Whether that's through viewing him as a creep or demeaning Rory or any of the other options. Everything the Dream Lord does is to paint the Doctor in a bad light so that Amy will choose Rory in the end. And you can tell this by the fact that the second that Amy decides that she's going to choose Rory, the Dream Lord doesn't look upset. In fact, he seems perfectly content with the scenario because it isolates the Doctor. It makes him more alone. And if the Doctor hadn't figured out his plan to keep them in two dreams as opposed to just having one, I feel like this would have just continued with the parasite creating more subtle but continuing the scenarios until eventually Amy and Rory really did leave. And that would leave the Doctor all alone, in which he would become this perfect food source for the parasite. And that, I mean, it's depressing, but it makes sense. And hell, maybe people disagree with me for like valid reasons, but most of the time, all I hear people talk about with this episode is, "Oh, it's a love triangle," and like that's not true. All right, now we got to talk about the two-parter, the Hungry Earth two-parter. This is by far the episode I took the least amount of notes on, so I'm gonna kind of freehand it, if you would. How do I? What the hell happened? How long have I had this emote on? What the fuck? God, I couldn't see my screen. How long have I had that emote on? Oh no. Damn, I just realized I can't actually hold on. What the hell? It's not what I wanted. Alright. That's fixed. Okay, so the Hungry Earth two-parter. Hey, I didn't actually talk about my opinions on Amy's Choice. Amy's Choice is a good episode. It's never been my favorite of season 5, but it is a objectively good episode. It is well made. It has some good dramatic moments. Is it my favorite episode of season 5? No, but it is a good episode of season 5. I didn't do a grade for either of these episodes. Vampires in Venice, probably like a C plus, B minus. It's not a bad episode. People are too hard on it. And Amy's Choice, A, just a flat A. It's probably the best of the early season besides like the 11th hour. Actually, no, because if it wasn't for the ending, the Crash the Byzantium two-parter beats it by a landslide. But like, if we discount, it's like the third, I guess, the third best story, fourth best episode, I guess. Yeah, it's a good episode. That's what I have to say on it. And Vampires in Venice is a good episode, or at least it's better than people give it credit for. It's not forgettable. It's just not the most, like, it's not the best thing ever. It's just a good episode. Anyway. Hungry Earth two-parter. This, I was not hyped for this. I'm gonna be honest. I straight up skip this two-parter whenever I'm rewatching season 5. I don't watch it because I don't want to, because I hate this episode. I was talking about in, I think, my second stream about how I hate Lord of the Flies because it paints this really pessimistic view of humanity where it's like, oh, as soon as you put us into like a stressful or like non-controlled situation, we suddenly become evil. And I always thought that was dumb. So how do you think I feel about this episode where it's the entire conflict is just caused by one woman proceeding to be the absolute worst because she's scared? Yeah, I hate this episode. But the first part's pretty good. Let's talk briefly about the first part of this episode. It's all setup, but it's decent setup. They show up in 2020 where there's no COVID and bluegrass, sure. And they were supposed to be going to Rio. Apparently they keep making Amy joke about it because she's in a miniskirt or whatever. I think it's stupid. Rory was not dressed for Rio, so I don't know what that was about, but whatever. They see their future selves across the fields, which I just made an entire video about spoilers, and during it I had to establish what fixed points are and how they work and stuff. You would think that this is a fixed point, but here's my thing, is that the entire universe was rebooted. I don't think it matters if it was a fixed point or not. It was a fixed point in the old universe. In the new universe, I guess it isn't. Or it has something to do with how angels work. The point is, there's multiple explanations as to why this works logically. I don't think that it's worth it to really talk about. It's just a mess. Everything's a mess. I'm kind of tired. If you haven't noticed, maybe you have. It's hard to tell how tired I am, or how tired I sound. How tired I am. It's hard to tell how tired I am. It's hard to tell how tired I sound. I'm fairly tired. I didn't even mention Rory's second death. Rory died again when they blew up the TARDIS. That's important to note. So that means he's died twice so far. Hooray. He's gonna die a third time in this episode. This time it's not gonna be undone right away. Oh no. They go to see this mining place, except for Rory, because a common theme with Rory throughout these two-parters is that Rory just kind of fucks off whenever the plot needs to happen, and then whenever he's necessary, he just kind of pops back in. Or even sometimes when he isn't necessary, it's just most of the time he's not needed for the episode, so he just doesn't exist. He goes to have a scene with Primrose and Elliot about the whole, oh, there was a body stolen from a grave, even though the grave wasn't touched, or whatever. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Amy go Sonic into the mining area, and the Doctor eats dirt. And Amy calls him disgusting, and my first thought was, Amy, you kissed him. You kiss the man who eats dirt. I think that makes you worse, if anything. Anyway, they go to the mine. They talk for a bit. Exposition ensues. I don't really care. I didn't even talk about the cold open. Some guy who was manning the drill gets taken. His name is Mo. He's Primrose's husband / Elliot's dad. It'll be relevant later, but I don't care. Because I don't care about any of the side characters in this episode, besides, like, one of them. Anyway, the point of this is that Amy finds some quicksand. Not quicksand, it's something earth. Bioengineered earth is what I think they call it. Amy starts sinking in, and the Doctor panics. He tries to pull her up. It's not working. Amy's getting pulled down. It's scary. I like how it's handled. It's probably the best Chibnall written scene in this episode. Besides, like, actually no, there's two. There's two good Chibnall written scenes in this episode. I'm gonna give him his credit. Um, so Amy gets taken. We don't know by what yet. It's gonna be revealed that it's the Silurians, but we don't know that yet. The doctor tells everyone that we shouldn't be panicking and yada yada. We're gonna figure this out together, and we're gonna get the people back. Uh, Rory shows back up in the plot somewhere around this time, and he says that he should have tried harder to save Amy, which, fair point. Um, we also get a really good scene with the Doctor and Elliot around this time, where Elliot's like, yeah, I want to move to the big city. I don't like it in this boring old place. And then the Doctor's like, I was just like that when I was a kid, where I wanted to leave where I grew up. And then Elliot asked, oh, hey, well, did you ever get to? And then he's like, yeah. And then he's like, do you miss it? And then you see the Doctor's entire demeanor shift, and he's like, so much. And it's God, that was really well done. You know, I can give Chibnall credit when he writes something good. I promise, I can do it. Anyway, then Elliot says that he forgot his headphones, so he just leaves. And for some reason, the Doctor gets blamed for this, as though this is his kid, or he signed up for babysitting duty. He just talked to the kid. This has, like, I get that he probably should have warned Elliot, like, said, hey, don't go outside. But, like, beyond that, which is, like, he clearly wasn't paying attention. So, like, whatever. I don't know why the episode / fandom blames the Doctor for this. Elliot left. There were multiple other adults there. But sure, clearly this is the Doctor's fault. Even though his mom's here. Why wasn't she watching her kid? Probably because she's a terrible parent and person. His mom's Primrose, by the way. They figure out it's Silurian and they capture one. Well, I mean, not in that order. They capture one and figure out it's a Silurian. And the Silurian's like, this is a war. You attacked us. And I mean, technically they did. It was a drill, drilling into their home. I mean, I think it's pretty fair of her to say that. And she's like, we used to own this planet, and it's still ours. And the Doctor's like, I don't disagree. But it's kind of the humans now, too. Which, the problem with talking about the Silurians as antagonists is the fact that there's some very obvious real-world parallels to make. So it gets kind of complicated, and I don't really think that my white ass has much to say in the regards of, land ownership. Anyway, the point is the Doctor wants them to make peace. Once the humans make peace, they can exchange hostages, everything will be fine. He straight up says to the people, you need to be the best version of humanity right now so that this can go well. And Primrose heard that and said, you know what? What if I did the exact opposite? And that's how the rest of this two-parter happens. God. The first part of this episode, honestly, it's not that bad. If I was watching this first part and then I didn't know what the second half was going to be, I'd honestly think it was pretty good, if I'm being completely frank. Primrose was being annoying even from, like, the first episode. She's the first person to suggest weapons and all that nonsense. But, overall, I think this was an okay episode. Would I put it on, like, par with Amy's Choice or anything? Obviously not. I would put it probably in the same range as, like, the Winston Churchill episode. Like a solid C. Solid C, C+. But, it was good. It was a good episode. Had some good moments in it. The second half, though. The second half was awful. It was god awful. So the entire second half can just be called Primrose murdered someone, and yet somehow she receives no consequences. Like, it's not an, like, they try and act as though Primrose did something that's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, it was a heat of the moment kind of. She murdered someone. Like, this isn't a thing where, like, oh, oopsie, I did a bad. Like, she literally killed someone. And it's not treated the same as if she had just killed someone because it's an alien, I'm assuming. But, like, if she had done this to, say, like, a person of a different race, I feel like we'd be looking at her extremely differently. But for some reason, because it's an alien, it doesn't matter as much, I guess. She literally killed someone. And more importantly, she killed someone after being specifically told, not only by the doctor, hello? What the fuck happened? Okay. More importantly, she killed someone not only after the doctor told her not to, but after the Silurian herself said that she wanted to be killed to start a war so that they could kill every human being on the planet. And Primrose was still like, you gotta give me the cure to my dad or I'm gonna zap you. And then she zaps her until she dies. Like, one zap, maybe even like 2 or 3, sure. You know, is it wrong to torture another creature? Abso-fucking-lutely. It is 110% wrong. However, I could at least sympathize to an extent. But she flat out killed her. More importantly, this is another moment where Rory just disappears from the plot because if he, was there, he might stop her. It's just this entire thing. Rory not knowing about this, not keeping track of who's going to see the prisoner, contrived. Primrose thinking this was a good idea at all, contrived. Everything about this was stupid. I hated it. I hated it. God. And the rest of the episode tries to get me to sympathize with Primrose. Oh, she was worried about her family. Amy lost. Amy. Eh. Rory lost his fiance. She's also been kidnapped. You don't see him zapping. Fucking. This guy has poison in his body, and he is going to die. And, like, yeah, he was going to betray them, but he was going to betray them by helping her escape, not by murdering her. Why is this episode so casual about the fact that this woman murdered another person? She murdered her. I don't care what she said or the fact that, oh, they have hostages. The only way that you're going to get your family back is if you exchange hostages and then you murdered her. It's so. I don't get it. Why does the episode expect me to sympathize? I don't. I get it. Oh, she's grieving. Oh, she she's scared. It's stupid. It's a stupid concept. Yeah, no, she's just gonna kill her. Oopsie. Oopsie daisy, she just killed a person. Her bad. Insanity. It's insanity. I don't even. What's there even left to say about the rest of the episode? The Silurians and the humans have a kind of like moment where they talk about potential peace and what sharing the planet would look like and all that stuff. The doctor's very happy. This is before they know that their hostage exchange isn't gonna work out because one of the hostages is dead. Um, Elliot's dad. I didn't mention this last episode. I don't remember if it was in last episode or like early in this one. Elliot's dad also suggests getting weapons and fighting the Silurians. I just want it to be noted that Elliot deserves 2 better parents. Why is he stuck with these 2? We move on. Like the British say, keep calm and carry on. I like the scientist Silurian. I like the drill lady. Rory, for what chunks of the episode he is in, I think is good. He's just taken completely out of a good chunk of the episode because otherwise, he would stop the plot from progressing. Um, the Doctor figuring out that the humans blew it. Very appropriate reaction, but honestly, I think it should have been even worse. I think he should have had a much worse reaction to figuring out that one of the humans just flat out killed the woman. Instead he's just like angry and disappointed. He should have been more angry and disappointed. I expected worse. And quite frankly, I think the Silurian who died deserved worse. I think she deserved for someone to have a worse reaction to her death. I mean, her sister had a pretty bad reaction to it. She was like, I want to kill all the humans, which is very fair. I mean, she already wanted to kill all the humans, but now they've killed her sister. Awesome. That was my remote. I'm kind of tired of playing Roblox. Hello? Jesus Christ, what happened? Okay, I'm still live, I think. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm gonna be looking at my notes instead. Just because I'm sick of this. Oh, you've got to be. Alright, cool. Roblox is closed. Right. Where is... There we go. Alright. Oh, I didn't mention the line where the Silurian pretends that she's the last of her kind, and the Doctor's like, no, I'm the last of my kind, and I know how it sits in a heart, so don't insult me. That's a really good line. Oh, I also forgot this. The Doctor uses a lot of slang this episode. Here's the thing. I don't like the Doctor using slang. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I don't like the Doctor using slang in a way that actually, works. I like the Doctor using slang in the way that, like, an old person does, because they're old. I don't like the Doctor using slang, like, the way 15 does, where he's fluent in it, and he actually uses it appropriately. I don't like the Doctor using slang like that. Even when he's just, like, trying to. I don't really like it. And so I just wanted to point out the Doctor uses slang a lot this episode, and he uses some of it appropriately. And I think I might have judged 15 too harshly. Or at least I might have let 13 off the hook way too easy for fam. Because, God, there's a lot of slang in this episode. Everything was Primrose's fault past me. Everything was her fault. Literally, none of this bad stuff that happens in the climax would have happened if she had just, stayed in the fucking room away from the prisoner. That's the part I don't get. Why wasn't anyone making sure that she wasn't going in the room with the prisoner? Why? It's so dumb. Like, just forget the fact that, like, oh, well, they didn't know she was gonna kill her. Forget that. You didn't know that she was gonna kill her, sure, but you did know that she wasn't going to be doing anything good while she was in there. Did you think she was just gonna watch her? Just like casually watch her? She's been so receptive so far. God. Um, the episode really tries to get you to sympathize with her after she killed this woman, and that's the part I don't get. Like, sympathize with her beforehand? Sure. Sympathize after? In what dimension? For what? She killed someone! And, like, the person was bound. Not even. Like, killing her did less than nothing. It did less than nothing. She literally just killed her because she was, like, emotional. Is meant to be what I'm supposed to gather. It's so dumb. It's dumb. Um, this entire family is the worst of humanity. That's true. I don't know about that second part, but the first part's true. Um, anyway, the climax is essentially, oh, they need to escape before the timer goes off. Very Chibnall of them. And throughout this entire time, the doctor just keeps on, like, stalling to talk to people. And then he proceeds to stall even more by looking at the stupid crack that showed up again. And then he reaches his hand inside of it, which was a choice. He grabs a piece of shrapnel, and then the Silurian who's mad at them all shows up and shoots Rory. She was trying to shoot someone else. Shoots Rory because Rory's a cool guy who saves people. Um, and then Rory dies. Third time. We've had 3 episodes with Rory, and he's died 3 times. That's practically once per episode. Um, Amy immediately freaks out, and Karen, she fucking earned her paycheck this week. Let me tell you, she did so damn good. Like Matt did good. Matt did good, but Karen acting her ass off, great in this scene. Jesus, heartbreaking. Everything about this scene is heartbreaking. It's so sad. And the doctor tries to, like, get her to remember him and make sure that he doesn't fade away. I got my answer. I asked last time, I was like, why does it that Amy doesn't forget the people who went through the crack in the Crash the Byzantium two-parter, but she forgets Rory? The answer is because she Jesus. The answer is because Rory is part of her own life. So her life is getting rewritten specifically, and that means that she forgets Rory. Look, I'm not saying I follow it exactly, but we were given a reason. um. Anyway, the second Amy switches from, like, being devastated to just like, oh, what were we talking about? Insane. Insane. Jesus. Were my eyes red that whole time? Were my eyes red that whole time? Hold on. Okay. I hope that I didn't have that the whole time. Hold on. Okay. Um, in terms of Rory's death, I think 60% of the blame lands on Primrose, 40% on the Doctor. Technically, should it be swapped the other way around? Because technically speaking, the Doctor is the one who kept stalling all that time? Probably. But I really hate Primrose. So, you know. She got no consequences. None. She killed someone, doesn't matter. No one's gonna know about it, it's fine. And now Amy's alone on the hillside, waving back at herself. Until we reboot the universe. In which case, there won't be anyone on the hillside at all. Because of what happens in Manhattan. I almost keep saying Manhattan every time. And I feel like that's insulting to people who live in Manhattan. Anyway. First part, again, decent. C. C plus. Second half, D minus. D minus episode. Did not enjoy it. Bad. And that is the Rory introduction era. That is the first bit of him being on the show. And I think it is a thoroughly mixed bag. We have one pretty good episode, one really good episode, and one god awful two-parter. Where half of it is pretty good and the other half is just awful. Not as awful as, say, the ending of the Crash the Byzantium two-parter, but definitely just bad. Bad all around. And with that, we have entered our first break. I talked through 3 episodes. Well, technically 4, but like 3 stories. And that was like way shorter amount of time than I spent on the Flesh and Stone two-part. To be fair, my notes for this were bad. They were just bad notes. This feels much more akin to my 11th hour stream. Like, my notes were bad. And the fact that I'm tired and my voice is sore because I was recording yesterday probably don't help. Neither of those help, but you know. We're gonna stretch. We're gonna take a minute. And then we're gonna get into classic. Don't you start with me. Don't you start with me, phone. I'll find your family. Alright. Okay. I feel like the Dream Lord is both overrated and underrated in a weird way, you know? Um like people don't talk about how Amy's Choice is like very much like a Doctor episode. Like it's an episode more about him than it is like even Amy really. Like it is about Amy, but the entire antagonist and everything that he's trying to accomplish has to do with the Doctor. And he's essentially using the antagonist is a piece of pollen that is using all of the Doctor's worst traits and tendencies to try and isolate him so that it can feed off of the darkness in his heart. And I think that is much more related to the Doctor than it is this supposed love triangle that doesn't exist. And I think that a lot of people kind of overlook that when discussing the Dream Lord. And, like, I get why. It's not exactly a fun topic. But it is definitely an important part of the episode, and I think it shouldn't be overlooked as much as it is. But, you know, we gotta live with what we live with. God. I am so tired. And I have work tomorrow. What time do I have work tomorrow? Alright. I really... Okay. Okay, here's the plan. I think that what I'm gonna have to do, for the sake of not dying on stream, is for the sake of not dying on stream, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through Classic, and then once I'm done that, I think instead of doing a topic time, I'm just gonna, like, either loosely script or just do edit down part of my previous stuff that I've been talking about. I don't think I'm gonna be able to edit anything out of this stream. I'm so tired, and I just have a feeling that literally everything I say, you can tell how tired I am. I'm gonna talk about Classic. We're gonna go over that. And then after that, I think I'm just going to go to bed. Because I'm so exhausted. Alright? Alright. So, with that said, let's sit up a bit more. Jesus. Can you hear my neck crack? I hope not. And let's get into our notes on all the Classic I watched. Alright. So, for those who don't remember the last two episodes, what happened was Susan went over the last two episodes, not just the last episode. They landed on Skaro. They didn't know that. There was radiation. They also didn't know that. The first episode was all set up. The second episode, they got captured by Daleks. And Susan went out to go get the drugs that the people who were outside the TARDIS, they think, dropped. In reality, they left them there intentionally. But they don't know that yet. They learned that this episode. Alright. I think that was summary enough. Susan walks out of the TARDIS, and the second she sees this man in the woods, she's just freaking out. Susan is the entire drama, and I love her. Susan saying this blonde man is perfect is a very 60s moment. I stand by that. It is. The fuck is this man's wardrobe? Is that rude to say? They're aliens. This is their culture. Maybe I'm the one who's being rude. I forget his name. I'm not gonna be able to tell you any of the Thal's names. You're just gonna have to stick with me. He asks Susan. He explains that they left the drugs on purpose and that they were trying to help and all that shit. He says that he was clumsy when first introducing, which, for the record, clumsy is not how I would put it. You just touched a random teenager's shoulder in the woods. I think her reaction was very appropriate, and that was beyond clumsy. He asked Susan if she trusts him, and my response would be, "No, strange man I met in the woods. I don't trust you." Um, anyway, Susan goes back. She gives the doctor and Barbara and Ian the drugs. They're all better now. Um, oh, uh, the Thal man has this cloak that's like very clearly plastic and it kept making noises, and I was like, what the hell is this thing here for? Why? That's not going to keep anyone warmed. It turns out it was rubbery for plot reasons. Um, the doctor starts waking up and he's like, "Oh, we need to get out of here," and yada yada. And Susan's like, "But doctor, we're still prisoners." And then he goes, "Oh, are we?" And I was like, "Modern doctor would say that even without the drugs." He would. I could so clearly hear 11 saying that. Or 12 actually. Either of them. Uh we must try and talk with the Daleks. My response, yell exterminate at them. So, there you go. Then Susan gives us a lore dump about the Thals in the prison cell, and the Daleks hear it over the security cameras. And I was like, why do they assume that there's no security cameras in this prison cell? And like, here's the thing, I guess for Barbara and Ian, like security cameras are probably like rarer back in the 60s, but the doctor should assume there's a security camera. I mean, obviously he wouldn't because, you know, it's the 60s. But I'm just saying someone should have considered that there was a security camera. Um the Dalek comes in to take Susan and then it's like, the girl is to come with me. And then Ian goes, why? And he like immediately jumps up to like try and protect Susan. And I'm like, this group is all so like very like loving. They all care about each other so much. Except for the doctor. The doctor's a dick. But that's part of his character. It's fine. He's charming. Um we then cut back to the Thals. We learned the Daleks were philosophers, which cool. And we learned the Thals are sexist, which is less cool. Um, Here's some lines. You'd be better to have given it to a man rather than a girl. Keep in mind a woman says this. I was like, woman, stand up. What are you talking about? Um, Another line. This line actually was one of the first things I remembered when I watched this episode the first time. For those that don't know, I'm watching Classic and streaming about it because if I don't, I am going to land up not actually watching it properly. I'm going to land up watching it half heartedly and going on my phone. But one of the first things I remember is that I looked up from my phone when this line showed up. No longer a child, not yet a woman. Oh, well, then you might be able to trust her because she's not yet a woman. What do you mean? What do you mean, 60s who? What are we talking about? The Thals are just like so incredibly sexist, and the worst part is it's just not a thing that's really acknowledged by the story. It's just a thing that's there casually. Oh my god. And it's funny because, like, so far, like, Ian and the doctor haven't been all that sexist. It's just kind of these people. So, weird. Weird choices all around. um, alright. Anyway, past that, uh, Susan is writing a letter to the Thals for the Daleks, and Daleks are telling her all the stuff to say, and she's writing it down. And, the Daleks don't know what a name is, which is weird. Do the Daleks not have names? I mean, they have titles. I I figure they must have some kind of names. I guess not. I guess they're all just like, "Hello, Dalek. How are you, Dalek?" I don't know. I never really noticed the fact that Daleks don't have names. Sure, I guess. Whatever. That's lore. The Daleks pushed Susan with their plunger hand, and I just think it's funny. I think it's funny to watch the Daleks push people around with their weird plunger hands. Um, Then we cut back to them all in the prison cell. Because earlier they said like, "Oh, how'd the Daleks know about the Thal?" It's because of the security camera, and they figured that out. And so they decide to act and pretend that they're fighting so that they can pretend that they broke the security camera in the scuffle. Which is hilarious, not only because we get to see the actors fake acting, but also because the Daleks don't fall for it for even a second. They straight up just like are like, "Oh, do you think they broke it in the scuffle?" No. And like that's it. They don't do anything about it though. They broke the camera and they're just like, "Whatever. Beep boop." The Daleks don't talk like that. I'm not doing a Dalek impression. My throat's already sore. um the doctor then, like, after they disable the security camera, they start like thinking about how they're going to escape. And the doctor notices the floors are metal. And I was like, "Oh, look, the little hamster in his head finally started running again." And it was just a scene that reminded me, like, oh yes, this is the doctor. Because like it's really easy for me to forget that one's the doctor sometimes, just because he acts so incredibly different from the doctor I'm used to. But yeah, this is the same guy. He's the same guy underneath it all. They just haven't really gotten him in the groove yet. They haven't had him arc yet. Um. Anyway, they figure out the Daleks run on static electricity. On static electricity, which is just what? The Daleks run on static electricity. Is that still a thing in Modern Who? I'm assuming there's going to be a classic episode where that changes, right? You're telling me the Daleks run on static? What happens if you like run across like a fluffy carpet with socks on and then like touch a Dalek? Will that supercharge them? Will that become like Super Saiyan? I don't know. Um this is where I figured out the cloak being rubbery was plot relevant. Can you tell that like I wasn't really watching this episode the first time around? That I'm like, oh, I guess that's why the cloak was rubbery. Whatever. Um, then we cut back to the Thalls again, and there's just like a scene with two actors who just do a really bad job for a second. Luckily, I don't know any of the Thalls' names, so I can't call them out, which I wouldn't want to. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I was about to say I'm sure they're better actors now. I mean, I think they're probably dead now, unfortunately. I mean, like, this was a long time ago. Um, but they were like, I never know you're serious when you're serious or when you're joking, and they say it in like the most like dull, like unbelievable tone. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out if that was acting or not. Then we have a conversation where we the Thalls are talking about like, oh, should we trust the Daleks? Should we trust the message? Like it's all about that. This episode is very much just like, oh, the Thalls are, naive for being trusting of the Daleks, which I mean I agree with because I know the Daleks. That's it. I agree with that. They are being naive to just trust the Daleks. I don't know. Maybe I'm being rude. I'm just not that trusting. Um anyway, out of that conversation we get a really good line, which is, I've never struggled against the inevitable. It's a vain occupation. I just think that's a great line. Even though I always struggle against the inevitable. One of my favorite hobbies, actually. Um, they start debating on how to uh, bleh. They try and debate on how to get around the Daleks so that they can escape. uh, my throat, man, my throat. They try and figure out a way to get around the Daleks so they can escape, and they suggest throwing a code at it. And I was like, yes, throw a code at the Dalek. That would be so funny. They try to exterminate the code. Um, Instead they make mud, which is actually just like clay or something. Um, and they put a piece of metal in the door to keep it from closing. Which, what a garbage prison door. Um, and it works. They get mud on the Dalek's lens, and for some reason it doesn't start shooting, which is insane to me. Even if it can't see, just start shooting anyway. Why are you letting these people just like push you around? Um, and then Ian goes in the Dalek. I mean, they pull out the squishy squid mutant thing and put it on the floor to die, I guess. We never pick up on that. It's dead on the floor, I guess. And then Ian goes in the Dalek and he talks like a Dalek, and I think that was funny. Um, Also, they just pick up the Dalek shell for a minute, and I was like, I never actually considered the idea that Dalek shells were like any lighter than like, I don't know, like 200, 300 pounds. Like, I just figured they were like fridge heavy. They're just like, you can just like pick them up, push them around. Sure. Um, anyway, that's the end of that episode. Uh, I think it's better than the second episode in the story. Uh, but in terms of Classic Who, I would give it like a B. It's not a bad episode. It's just I've seen better. In terms of modern Who though, I keep on messing up that curve. I'm just gonna stop comparing the two. Um anyway, they try to escape and then the Dalek, like the actual Dalek show up. And it's like, "What are you doing?" And Ian Dalek is like, "Oh, I'm taking these prisoners." Yeah, da da. And Susan plays along and she does this cheeky little wink. And I'm like, oh my god, she's so silly. I'm gonna give her a noogie. I love Susan. Little drama baby. Love her. Then they get through the door. The other Dalek doesn't suspect a thing until it proceeds to call its commanding officer and is like, oh, the prisoners have been moved safely. And the commanding officer's like, I didn't order this. What are you talking about? And the Dalek's like, oh, and then tries to unlock the door. Well, tries to open the door and then realizes it's locked. And you just see the Dalek like kind of like bump into it and then be like, "What? Oh my god, I can't get in." And I just think that's the funniest thing. Um, Ian says like, "Oh, get me out of this thing. I'm suffocating in here." And I was like, "Is Ian claustrophobic?" Because like Clara didn't seem to have much of a problem in there. I mean, outside of the fact that Missy tried to get her killed, obviously. But you know, like she didn't seem to have an actual problem being in the thing. Um, Barbara and Susan both say they're not going without Ian. And it's just like, one, Susan again, always the drama. Always at 110%. Love her. But also Barbara immediately saying, oh no, we're not leaving, is just, this group loves each other so much, minus the doctor. The doctor he has his own issues, but these three love each other so much, and I love that. I love these three. Susan has a panic attack in the elevator. She just like me for real. Um, and then a lot of stuff happens. Dalek tries to cut through the door. Ian's trying to go on the lift. Everything's insane, and then Ian gets on the lift, and everything's fine. Um, as soon as he gets out of the lift, Barbara immediately hugs him. This is my ship. I am going to draw fan art of them at some point. I promise you. Um, why did I write this note? Oh, uh. They go to the window and they see the city and the roads and all that stuff. And they see the Thalls showing up because of the note. And Barbara says, it wasn't a Dalek, it was a man, a human being. And I was like, two completely different things, and also wrong, Barbara. You're on an alien planet. Those are aliens, not human beings. I feel like that shouldn't be hard to grasp. Then they try to go and use the door, but obviously it's magnetized. And I was like, damn, if the Doctor had his Sonic, this entire episode would be 1,000 times easier. But he doesn't, you know, sad. The Dalek tries to go up the lift, and they can't stop it, so instead Ian puts a rock on it. And I just think that's a funny way to solve the problem. The classic era Who, from what I've gathered, is just like so ridiculous that you can't help but laugh. I need to watch some old sci-fi, like some other old sci-fi. I feel like I would appreciate it. Um, Anyway, we cut to the Thalls, who are like, the Thalls are have their leader who's like, oh, we should totally just trust the Daleks, and then the other Thal's like, why are we just like trusting the Daleks implicitly? And we're not. It's just because, oh, that's a mentality based on fear. We should trust people. Herberdeber. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think that we need to trust people all the time. I don't think we need to do that. Um, uh, I'm genuinely so exhausted. Hey, I've had 3 views today. I think that's the highest amount of views I've had on a stream while it's actually live. That's hype. Uh, it's a shame it's for this stream, though. I feel like last stream would have been a much better stream to have that amount of views. Right now, I'm exhausted. Um, anyway, they go in, they get ambushed by Daleks, and well, I mean, they're about to get ambushed by Daleks, and then Ian's like, "Oh, we gotta go warn them," and then they're all like, "Oh, but we need to go back to the TARDIS," and yada yada. Except for the Thalls, Barbara, and Thalls. Barbara, Susan, and Ian are all like, "We need to warn the Thalls," and the Doctor's like, "Why? That's none of our business. Let's go back to the TARDIS," which I just think is fun because it's the Doctor actually showing off the mentality that he tried to pretend that he had to Amy when they did the whole Star Whale thing, where it's like, oh, we do not mess with things that don't have to do with us, except for that's all the Doctor does. And I feel like he must have learned this mentality from Ian and Barbara because this is all they do. Well, Ian, Barbara, and Susan to an extent. Um, So Ian decides to stay behind. All of them go. And Ian tries to warn the Thalls, but he's too late, and one of them dies. Their leader dies. Um, and Ian reacts very casually to this man just dying. Uh, really weird, if I'm being frank. But he does. He just acts very like, oh, I'm so sorry about your death. Not even so sorry, like, oh, I'm sorry I wasn't there on time. My bad. And the other guy's like, oh no, I understand, it's not your fault. And he doesn't even have a big reaction to the death until like way afterwards. It's weird. Anyway, we cut back to the camp. The Doctor's having fun talking about history and space and stuff with this girl. And then they talk about the Daleks and, oh, you should fight back. Oh, but we don't wanna. That's just kind of what happens. Those are the exact quotes. They say that's the thing that happens. I'm normally I'm much more energized for my streams. I know that's hard to believe, but I am genuinely 9 times out of 10 much more energized than this. I have so much left to read. Um anyway, we learned Ian left the fluid link at Skaro and at the city on Skaro. Skaro's the planet. The city doesn't have a name. They left the fluid link there, which means that they can't actually leave even if they wanted to. The Daleks show footage of the forest. I didn't know they had cameras out there. I don't think they call them cameras, but they have something out there that shows a picture of Ian talking to the Thal. So there's something going on. Hold on, I'm gonna have a drink of water. ASMR. Anyone who likes to hear people drinking water. There you go. That's something for you. Ugh. Anyway. Um, Ian tries to convince the Thalls to fight, but he ultimately comes to the conclusion that if the Thalls don't want to fight, then all he'd be doing is asking them to sacrifice themselves for their sake, which he is not comfortable doing, and I don't blame him. The others all get on his ass for him. The others all get on his ass for it, but I don't think that that's fair. He's literally saying, like, what the fuck? I'm not going to ask these people to sacrifice their lives just for us to go home. How is that fair? And Barbara and the doctor are like, yes, you are. Go do it. And I'm like, why don't either of you do it? Why is it Ian's job? Barbara, if you're so insistent that Thalls should sacrifice their lives for you, you go tell them to do it. Why are you making Ian do it? um, the doctor checked for another fluid link and like mercury and everything, and it turns out they actually do need mercury, so his lie to get into the city wasn't a lie at all. This is what we call karma, ladies and gentlemen. It, it's just the doctor pulled this stupid shit where he said, "Oh, I don't have the fluid link mercury that I need," and it turns out he actually didn't, and now everyone's screwed over. God. And then everyone continues ganging up on Ian about having morals instead of ganging up on the doctor for having caused all this. Even though Ian's in the right. Again, I just want to emphasize that Ian isn't doing anything wrong. He is in fact in the right. But whatever. um Ian then goes on to try and manipulate them into fighting him to like see if they're actually like pacifists or cowards. He wants to see if they will fight for anything or if they just are complete pacifists. Um and then he gets decked over it, which deserved. Um, then we cut to the Daleks, and one of them is begging for help and then starts moaning. I didn't realize that I was going to be watching Dalek porn today, but you know, unfortunate. Uh, then the Daleks realize that they need radiation to live, and so they decide, let's build a nuclear bomb. They don't say nuclear, I don't think, but they do say that they're building a bomb. So, that plan doesn't even land up working out, but I feel like I should mention it. Um, then the Thal who punched Ian, who's the new leader, and was the Thal that Susan met and everything, has this conversation with the girl that Ian threatened, and is like, "Oh, I fought him. It, boo hoo," and and then for some reason they show Barbara and this other Thal just like looking over them ominously, and I was like, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" They were just like looking over them in shadow, and I was like, "Oh my god." Um, and then they start talking about the swamp, the scary swamp with mutations in the lake, and it dissolves or mutates bodies or something. I don't know what happened in the lake, but something happened. um, and then the guy says only a fool would attack the city from the lake. And then I was like, if this was a modern Who episode, the Doctor would already be attacking the city from the lake. Like, they would still have this line, but it would be right before cutting to a scene of the Doctor attacking the city from the lake. Like, it would be him, like, trying to, like, crawl across the lake or something. Um, anyway, the Daleks are talking about the how long it'll take to make the bomb and everything, and oh, but if we need radiation to survive, then we can never like repair the outside world. We can never fix everything. And then the one Dalek says, "We don't have to adapt to the world. We will make it suit us." And I was like, "Oh, so it's modern day Republicans. You know, we don't need to adapt to the way the world's changing. We just need to bring it back to the way that it'll suit us." People say that Doctor Who isn't woke. uh There is no indignity in being afraid to die, but there is in a fear to live. This is the thing that that the leader Thal says while he's talking to everyone. And I think that it's a really good line. I think that it's a good, like, moment for the Thals. Anyway, they then plan out and they decide to go through the swamp. What do you know? That exposition is actually meaningful for something. Who'da thunk? Um, I noticed that the water did look authentically disgusting, at the very least. It does look like swamp water. Uh, Throughout the next two episodes, we're going to be focusing a lot on these two Thals who are brothers. I didn't hear that they were brothers when they were first introduced, so I was trying to figure out throughout the entire first episode if they were brothers or gay for each other. They are brothers, but if you see any notes where I ask if they're gay, it's because of that. Um, One of the Thals said, "I'm surprised you let Barbara come," and I was like, "Why are these people so sexist?" And Ian was like, "Oh, I could try and stop her. It wouldn't work, something along those lines." And I was like, "That's great. Barbara's so girl boss." um, then we get a Barbara and Ian solo moment, which again, I ship these two. They are soft. I want them to kiss. I know I'm not getting a kiss, not with my luck, but I would like one. Um, then they decide to take a break and have watch. What I've noticed about Classic Who is just like they never just like cut. Like they kind of like show every scene until it like naturally concludes, and it just makes the entire show run a lot slower. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, it's just a thing. And then someone died in the mutant lake. You know, the mutant lake that already has killed a person. It's shocking. This episode is called The Ordeal, and honestly, I wanted to make a joke about how watching it was an ordeal, but that feels mean. I said this poor dude's death was an ordeal, even though it was very short. Not that much of an ordeal. I mean, he died fast. Um, Here's the comment I made about them being super gay if they're not brothers. Uh, oh, then we cut back to the Doctor and Susan. They're trying to do stuff in the city to sabotage the Daleks, and I just noted that Susan does nothing halfway because she started like reaching over the map and saying east, north, south, west, and she's like drawing with her fingers on the map. And I was like, girl, you could have just said, you could have said and pointed. Why are you dragging everything? It's great. Um, the Doctor proceeds to get out from cover to put on his glasses and look around. And I was like, every version of the Doctor, especially 13 and 11, every version of the Doctor would do that. And Susan's like, Doctor, get behind cover. What are you doing? And he's like, oh, right. Getting shot at. Um, they keep cutting to like the shot of Scarrow from far away, from far away. It's clearly just a model. It's a very cute model though. I like it. Um Oh, we cut back to the Daleks talking. I'm gonna be honest, I heard nothing of what they said. I was just kind of like listening to them talk, and I was like, man, I could listen to these idiots talk forever. um, then we cut back to our main group for the episode, and they're in a cave, and Barbara trips over nothing into this Thal's arms, and this is the Thal that she's going to be flirting with throughout the episode, which is fine. Just goes against my ship, but it's fine. um they kind of just walk for a little bit and then they find a cavern and then Barbara's like, "Oh, I don't think we should do this." And then the guy's like, "Oh, you scared?" And yada yada. At some point he asks, "Do you always do what Ian tells you to?" And she says no. And I was like, given your tri's opinions on women, I'm surprised you even think to ask. I assumed that you would just expect her to do whatever Ian tells her to. Then she tries to lower him down with the rope and tie it to a rock, and then she does the most pathetic display of holding the rope up I've ever seen in my life. It's worse than some cartoons. She literally could not have been poorer at holding that rope. Um oh, here's the note where I figured out that they were brothers. Oops. He fell down the hole, but it turns out it was actually a good thing because there's a ton of passageways down there, and that's where they need to go next. Yay, plot. The Daleks have bad Wi-Fi. they're like, oh, I want to get a picture, but there's no reception. Whatever. Um, we are shown the doctor and Susan and all them, and he says we mustn't diddle about. And I was like, don't you mean dawdle? Do people say diddle about? That's such a weird thing to say. It's the 60s, but like that's like the thing that stood out to me the most so far in terms of 60s dialogue. Who says diddle about? Um, then we cut back to the caves. I like that's just kind of this episode. This episode is just cutting back and forth. Caves, city, caves, and that's it. And occasionally we get a shot of the Daleks going, "We're still evil." It's not a very fun. Like this is the part of the episode. Ironically enough, this feels like it should be like the climax and stuff. Like this is the rising action, and I'm at my most bored during this section. I much preferred when we were having the fun moments on the TARDIS at the beginning of the story than this stuff. They're walking through the caves, and uh, Barbara has this line where she says things have stopped being impossible and have become unbearable, which I just think is funny. Um, then the brothers have an argument about, oh, I want to go back, the coward one. And then the other one's like, oh, we need to stay here. And then there is a very well timed cave in. So now they can't go back the way they came. Then we come back to the Daleks. See, she's cutting back and forth, back and forth. Um, and they say, oh, the cameras are out, but it's fine. We can track them via vibrations. So that way, they won't see us coming. And so they do that, I guess. I didn't even know they could do that, but apparently they can. Uh, and then we cut back to the doctor, and we learn the entire city is powered by static electricity. Is that still the case in the fucking Magician's Apprentice or whatever? Is that still a thing? Is all of the city of Skaro powered by static electricity? I just can't believe that. That's insane. Um anyway, the doctor starts messing with the controls, and then when Susan says, "Okay, we should leave now," the doctor instead proceeds to continue to stay there. Um Also, the doctor says that he can make new TARDIS keys. I didn't know he could do that. I thought the TARDIS keys were like special or something. You're telling me you can just make more of them? Is it like making a house key? I didn't know that. um the doctor wanting praise and then getting captured is great. It's so funny. Then there's the going across the gap section of the episode. I'm not even going to talk about this section. It goes on forever. Forever. If I had been normally like watching this episode like on my own, this is the part where I definitely would have given up and gone on my phone because it takes forever and nothing really happens until the end. Not even until the end. Literally until next episode, nothing really happens. They're just jumping across the gap for ages. Um, and we keep cutting back to the Doctor and Susan, who have been captured by the Daleks. The Daleks explain their plan for no reason. The Doctor tries to reason with them, which is just funny in hindsight. Oh, Barbara jumped into Ian's arms when jumping across the gap. That's the only thing notable about the gap section. She jumped directly into his arms, and I love that. I love that for them. Um, right. Then, this guy jumps over, and I know it's supposed to be that he fell, but it really looked like Ian just pushed him. And then he screams, like he actually freaks out in a way. I was like, damn, rent was due. This guy needed that paycheck. And then that's our cliffhanger for the episode. This guy fell. Oh no, not scared, brother. I will miss him so much when he dies. Ian almost falls with him, but he cuts the rope in a noble sacrifice or whatever. And God, they were pulling on Ian's cardigan to try and keep him up, and I was like, that fabric looks like it's literally gonna tear from you doing that. That cardigan definitely was like $5 at Walmart. Do they have Walmarts in England in the 60s? I'm pretty sure that's an American company. I don't know when Walmart was founded. I'm not asking questions anymore. I feel like that made me sound like a really dumb American, but I genuinely just don't know. I don't know a lot about Walmart history. um, this is senseless evil killing. Yes, doctor, now you're getting it. I feel like that's just important to note, the fact that the doctor took this long to say this is just senseless evil killing, as opposed to the very sensible and normal killing that I do. Um, all of the people who were in the caves are now covered in dirt, even though they weren't earlier, but whatever. Um, the Thalls who are outside the city, once they realize the Doctor and Susan have been captured, one of them says, "Have we forgotten how to fight?" And I was like, I mean, probably. You haven't been warriors since, like, pre your re-evolution. So I would assume so. It's not like fighting is, like, an inherent skill or anything. It's something you need to work towards. So, you probably have forgotten how to fight. Luckily, the Daleks are wet paper towels in this era of the show, but, probably. Um, the Doctor acting like he was ever going to give up his TARDIS. Genuinely, though, he was not. uh, there's this scene where the Dalek is like, I was about to say walking. Daleks don't walk. Sliding down a hallway, and then obviously, Ian and Barbara and all of them were like, hiding behind a wall. Except for they weren't. You could see their entire legs, and I was like, this Dalek must have no peripheral vision. Do Daleks have peripheral vision? I mean, I guess technically not. What what's there to be peripheral? Nothing, I suppose. Um, this is something that I haven't mentioned in any of the others. This is something I haven't mentioned when talking about any of the other episodes. Um, but it has been here since the beginning. All of the sci-fi stuff in this are so cheese because why are there so many pie chart buttons? There's pie chart buttons. Everything looks like it was made in like 10 minutes with stuff that was pulled out of a scrapyard. Which, I mean, probably it was. And that's not an insult. I love it. I'm just saying that everything looks kind of like, oh, yes, this is advanced. This is science. I don't know. Um, there's this long section where the Daleks are counting down with this machine, and I was like, is the Dalek counting required for the machine to work? Why do they keep counting? Go do something else. And then there's a fight scene. Uh, I don't like modern day fight scenes, let alone whatever this is. The Thalls come in and they start pushing the Daleks around and fucking them up. Ian literally kicked a Dalek across the room. Again, I'm reminded that apparently Daleks are super lightweight. Which, how? Why? What? Anyway, uh, the Dalek says, "Oh, save us! You need to save our power, or this will be the end of the Daleks." And the Doctor's like, even if I wanted to help you, I don't know how." And the Dalek shoots its eye stalk all the way up towards the sky. I didn't know the Daleks could do that. It kind of freaked me out. I didn't like it. Um. Anyway, this will be the end of the Daleks. Ha! No, it won't. Daleks are never gonna die. They're too iconic to die. Um, after everything, they go back to the forest, and the one lady who the Doctor was talking to earlier was like, "Oh, they said something like you could stay or whatever." And then he was like, "No, you will search for truth in your places. Always search for truth. My truth is in the stars. And maybe I'll visit your grandchildren someday, and then I'll live here or whatever." Um, and it was nice. It was a nice moment. Then Susan shows up in her cape that she got as a present, and then I was like, it's the moment where I finally like wrote in my notes, Susan is such a little girl. She is just a baby. And it's so obvious that like the Doctor babied her because she is 16. Why is she acting like she's 10 the majority of the time? She is a baby. Um and this is just uh more evidence that the Doctor is a girl dad, and I love him. The doctor gives the Thal a handshake, and he's like, "What? Handshake?" Like, he doesn't, like, say it out loud, but, like, just his expression and confusion. I was like, okay, guess they don't have handshakes here. Oh, the guy flirting with Barbara has a final moment where he kisses her hand, like, really long and really importantly, and I was like, okay, whatever. Hopefully we never see you again. Don't you interfere with my ship. I'll execute you. And then they go off into an explosion that starts the next episode. And that is the first Dalek story. Overall, the story was good. It was good. It was long. It was long-winded. I feel like you could have cut all of the gap jumping scene. Why was that there? Like, it got really long towards the end. The beginning parts I really enjoyed. And I'm gonna be honest, I love every scene of the Daleks. I love the Daleks. They're my favorite weird robot man things. Um, but I don't know. I don't think that I just don't think that the second half of this story was all that good compared to the first half. Um, Obviously this is my first full story, so I guess I kind of have to put it at like a C for now, just because I don't have anything to compare it to. Um, so it's the first Dalek story. I'm gonna put it at a B, just like even though I have nothing to compare it to, I feel like I should just put it at a B because it's the first Dalek story. The Daleks are iconic, if nothing else. And you gotta give them their appreciation. Ugh. My throat hurts. Alright. I knew I said that I was gonna end after I was done talking about the Dalek story. But I'm gonna be so for real. It's only 12:30. And that feels like super early to end a stream that's supposed to end at 2 a.m. at 2:30. Okay. I feel like I'm gonna look back at this stream and be like, I didn't talk about the Rory era well enough. Because I already feel that right now. Like, a part of me wants to, like, next week just, like, redo this stream where I'm hopefully, like, more awake and less absolutely exhausted. What the hell? Uh, cool. Whatever this is. Why is this thing happening? Sorry, something happened on my computer. Uh, uh, I just... I'm really tired. And I feel like that definitely impacted the stream. And I have this sneaking suspicion that I'm gonna look back at this stream when I'm doing my shorts editing and stuff and be like, man, I didn't really talk about the I didn't really talk about the season 5 episodes as much as I should have. Not just because I didn't have the notes to do it, but just because I just kept on like forgetting stuff and not actually talking about the things I wanted to talk about. Like, I probably could have talked about Amy's choice in reality for like an hour on its own because I have so much to say. But I'm so out of it right now that I feel like I just didn't do it justice. And like maybe I'll like maybe at the end maybe maybe like I'll do like an actual scripted thing. I mean, I'm going to do a scripted thing for season 5 in general. For those that don't know, this is part of a project that I'm working on. I'm rewatching the 11th era for a reason. Um the 11th era, the 11th Doctor's era for a reason. I'm not just doing it for fun, even though I could and have. Um but I'm rewatching it for a reason. And it's for a big scripted video that I'm doing. Um so like maybe maybe next stream, instead of doing a topic time or something, I'll try and like redo like at least Amy's Choice. I feel like that episode, like I just did not do any kind of justice. Like the other two episodes, I feel like get a pass because like it's a pretty good episode and a not great episode. But like Amy's Choice is an actual good episode, and I have a lot to say about it. And I feel like I just didn't say anything because I was reading my notes and I'm tired. Ugh. Um, the thing is, whenever I end a stream early, I feel like it's false advertising, you know? Because, like, in all of my shorts, it says that I stream from 10 to 2. So, if I don't stream from 10 to 2, I I kind of feel like I'm false advertising. You know? Like, I'm supposed to stream from 10 to 2. I'm not supposed to just, like, suddenly stop streaming. Just because I'm exhausted or anything. But I kind of am, and I feel like it's affecting the stream itself. Like I don't feel like I did the Amy's Choice episode review any kind of justice. I feel like I just kind of skimmed through my notes and tried. Like I skimmed through my notes and tried, but I didn't actually succeed in saying what I wanted to say. It's I genuinely am considering right now, like, would it just be better if I just like stop the stream and like retry this again next week where I'm actually hopefully more awake because next week I have the whole day off. I just came back from work. That's the thing. I ended work at 7. I watched some episodes and then I went right on stream and I was late. So, I feel like I don't know. I think I am just gonna log off. I'm gonna end the stream here. I shouldn't. Bad. Bad optics to do that, but I'm just I'm just really fucking tired today. I'm sorry. Alright. This is the most viewers I've ever gotten live on stream, which sucks. Again, it really, really sucks that this is the most viewers I've gotten live on stream. I swear, my streams aren't usually this bad. I know that those people aren't currently watching anymore, I don't think. I try not to check the, like, the control panel or anything, like the live controls. Because, like, seeing how many viewers I have just, like, makes me anxious. Yeah, there's no one watching this second. So it doesn't actually mean much that I'm saying this, but if anyone's watching this VOD and is like, God, this stream was awful, I never want to watch the streams, just know that it's not normally this bad. Like, normally I'm chaotic and disorganized, but this was an especially bad day. Alright. I think I'm done. Have a good day. Have a good night. And bye-bye.